Thank you, Toastmaster of the day, Nico. To my fellow Toastmasters and guests, welcome. Let's say you want to make cheesecake. But what if you never knew what cheesecake looked like? What if you never knew what cheesecake tasted like? Heck, what if you didn't even know cheesecake existed? Up until recently, I didn't know what cheesecake was like. I had never tried the best cheesecake until recently. And this cheesecake is leadership. Because I didn't have those role models growing up. I came from an immigrant family, which taught me to keep my head down, don't get noticed, and be a team player. So I was never in the student government, never good enough on a sports team to be the captain, and was never going to step up and be a team leader on a school project. And I was happy. I've completed high school, college, grad school, and started at NIST, never having even thought of leadership at all. 5 years into my career at NIST, I got an opportunity to attend the Foundations of Leadership program. And I was like, yes, I'm finally going to get the recipe for leading. This course is going to tell me exactly how to be a leader, what it takes to be a leader, what it takes to be successful as a leader. But spoiler alert, everyone, this course does not teach you that at all. But it did do one thing. It helped me to identify the ingredients for leadership that were already inside of me. So there were 3 things I learned from this course. First, I did a 360 feedback, asked all my colleagues, my managers to give me anonymous feedback, and I found that I was good at interpersonal skills. Here I was just making friendships and connections. I had no idea that interpersonal skills was a key ingredient to good leadership. I also found out through this feedback that my communication skills were really good. And I had always thought that I hated public speaking, that I was poor at public speaking. But this feedback really showed me that, hey, maybe there's something there. I also found out through this program that I'm not really the most innovative person. When people say things like, think outside the box, the phrase that most applies to me is, think inside a box, a very constrained box. I can be very creative with constraints. I also learned that because I'm not the most creative person, I could mentor creative people around me to achieve their best. So what did I do after this course? I took those ingredients that I identified within myself and I tried them out in different places, in different recipes. Within the Toastmasters Club, I've held positions such as VP of Education as well as President. Last year, if you didn't know, I was the area director within the district of Toastmasters, where I helped manage 5 clubs, including our own. For the Association of NIST Asian Pacific Americans, I held leadership positions in there for several years, and this year I began a 2-year term as chair. And in terms of work, I was PI on many projects. I also mentored students through that work. And in 2020, January of 2020, I began preparing to be the interim program manager of the High Performance Buildings program within the engineering laboratory. And do you know what happened in March of 2020? If you don't remember, I'll remind you. The pandemic hit and everyone was sent home for mandatory telework. So how is I going to be a program manager and do this job that's been traditionally in person in a virtual setting? Well, I learned through this that I am a very agile person. I got used to all the platforms. I met individually with 11 project leaders, taking up a total of 11 hours. But that was good for me because I got really connected with each of the project leaders. And I built a connection with each of them that I think already built on my skills. I also practiced my communication skills, not in an in-person setting, but in a virtual setting. In that summer of 2020, the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine reviewed our program, and I was able to present to them a 20-minute snippet of what our program was doing so that they could evaluate us on how we were doing. And we received mostly positive feedback, and so that was very rewarding. During the pandemic, I also mentored 2 co-op students. I never thought I could mentor a student virtually because I like being there side by side in front of a computer, troubleshooting things. When they ask me a question, they can point to the screen and show me exactly what's going on. But virtually, it was a whole new ball game. I had to train them virtually. We had to meet very often via web. We also used our chat function instead of email. So I showed agility there, changing from an traditionally in-person co-op to completely virtual. So here it is, folks. What is my recipe for leadership that I've learned through the FLP, Foundation of Leadership program, as well as during this pandemic, being the interim program manager? Well, here are the ingredients. The first ingredient are your strengths and weaknesses. So I put them together as one ingredient. The second ingredient is, what is your motivation? And the third ingredient is an opportunity or opportunities to lead. Now you gather all of your ingredients, and here's a step-by-step recipe on leading. The first is to identify your strengths. So I learned through my 360 feedback that I have really good interpersonal skills and communication skills. And I had a mentor tell me, focus on those. You are an A in those categories, but you could get to A+. And that's one of the reasons why I joined Toastmasters. I thought, yeah, I'm pretty good at communicating, but I could be even better. My mentor also told me, and this is the second step in that recipe, is to mind your weaknesses. You need to know them, but you don't need to dwell on them. Focus on your strengths and build those up. He told me very importantly, it's really hard to go from a C to an A. It's easier to go from an A to an A+. So I mind my weaknesses, but I don't dwell on them. The third step in the recipe is to find your motivation. Are you motivated for your own success, which isn't selfish? If you're motivated by your own success, then become a PI in a project. Become a leader and an expert in your field. And that can be within the company NIST or it could be outside. But what if your motivation is to help others? Then you can seek out mentorship, collaboration. And in that way, you can inspire creativity and innovation in others. And the fourth step in this recipe is to find, to ask for, and to take opportunities to lead. Like I said before, my leadership opportunities that I've taken haven't all been work-related. They've been at the Toastmasters Club level, district level, and also an Infinity Group. And all of that experience translated to leadership within work. I also take opportunities to lead by mentoring people, and hopefully one day when they move on into their career, they will remember the time they spent here at NIST being mentored by myself, and that makes them a better leader. So there you have it. I believe that when people say, so-and-so is a natural leader, I believe that statement is false. No, I believe that leaders are made. And I truly believe that the ingredients for leadership are in every one of you. So please take this recipe and make it for your own to find the leadership within yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Lisa, for a fantastic speech. I always look forward to seeing and hearing your speeches because they're always so well put together. And when I was asked to evaluate, I thought to myself, oh, geez, A, I'm out of practice for evaluations, and B, there's never anything to say for Lisa's speeches aside from it was amazing. And this was no different than the others. I'm not going to go through and talk about your speech again. We all heard it, and I really liked I liked your attention grabber at the beginning about the cheesecake. I was like, ooh, are we talking about cheesecake? I remember that time that you brought in cheesecake for us all to enjoy. That was amazing. But what I really liked was how you organized your speech. I love a well-organized speech. And I knew I had a sense of where you were going with that, and I really liked that. I like that you talked about the different ingredients, and then you talked about how you use those ingredients. And I like that you weren't just talking about your experiences, which you were, which I think was part of the project. So we got to hear what you learned about yourself, but you also framed it in a way that we could all appreciate it and we could all kind of learn from your experience. To say, I think one of the best things you said was that there are no natural leaders, that you make yourself a leader. And that was so motivating because it's easy for us to think, well, you know, she was a natural communicator, she was a natural leader. But to hear that you struggled with it in the beginning and that you learned about yourself, you learned what your strengths were, you learned about your weaknesses, and you figured out how to take what you had and make yourself into a leader using that. And that was just amazing. And I also liked the fact that you talked about how it's a lot easier to go from an A to an A plus than to go from a C to an A, which I was in the FLP program with you. And I think Nico was in there as well. So cheers to our group. But it was something that I think a lot of us think about improving ourselves and to think about going from something that you're good at to being even better at. And that's where you should really focus your efforts. So I thought you really did a great job. The one piece of suggestion, or I guess I hate to use the word criticism, but the one thing that I would consider if you were to give it again would be, I was a little disappointed that you didn't really bring back the cheesecake theme. So whether I was trying to think, you know, would I suggest that you carry the theme throughout? And I'm not sure that would be very appropriate because I think that would take away from the seriousness of your message. And so whether you find a way to tie it in maybe once in the middle and then at the end, or maybe sacrifice that amazing attention getter and come up with a different way to grab our attention in the beginning and something that you can more easily bring through the entire speech. But otherwise, I think we all really benefited from your message and spoke clearly, you spoke well. I think you did a phenomenal job. So thank you for yet another wonderful speech.